Good morning, all. So we'll be starting today with GU trauma, genitourinary tract trauma. In that, we will divide it in two sections: upper tract trauma and lower tract trauma. Upper tract trauma consists mainly of renal trauma, and lower tract will consist of bladder, urethra, and ureter will be combined in both. So upper tract trauma can be subclassified as renal trauma or ureteric trauma. Renal trauma, the mode of injury can be a blunt trauma like road traffic accident, penetrating trauma, crush injury, or acceleration or deceleration injuries like in car accidents. So it can be blunt, penetrating, crush, or acceleration or deceleration injury. Similarly, ureteric trauma can be iatrogenic and non-iatrogenic. Iatrogenic means inflicted by some procedure, like it may be a urological procedure or a non-urological procedure. Urological procedure, like you are doing a ureterorhinoscopy for stone, that time you can injure ureter. Or non-urological procedure, especially gynecological surgeries like hysterectomy is one of the most important causes of iatrogenic non-urological ureteric injury, hysterectomy. Then non-iatrogenic ureteric injury can be because of penetrating trauma, because of sharp object. So in that, this should be clear in your mind: renal and ureteric. Ureteric trauma, mostly it is iatrogenic, urological and non-urological, and more commonly non-urological. In non-urological, most common is hysterectomies. Hysterectomies, the most common mode for iatrogenic non-urological ureteric injuries. So you should know about the renal surroundings very well, like what all organs will be affected along with it, and what are the factors which can cause renal injury. Like as I told you, road traffic accident, stab wound to the flank or back, gunshot injuries, crush injuries, or blunt trauma. So in general, 1.5 to 3% trauma patients will have renal injuries. 1.5 to 3% RTA patients will have renal injuries. So renal surrounding is very important, as you have well read in anatomy. So as you see in right kidney, there will be anteriorly, anteromedially there will be peritoneum. Then inside there will be perirenal fascia or Zerotas fascia. We have anterior lamella and posterior lamella. Then above will be right suprarenal or adrenal gland, and right side there is a liver, diaphragm. It is around the upper pole will be near somewhere near the 11th and 12th rib. As I told you, perineal fascia, anterior lamina, posterior lamina. Then from outside in, you can have skin, subcutaneous tissue, external oblique, internal oblique, and transversalis muscle, and then fascia transversalis. And there will be abundant perirenal fat. So these are the surrounding structure around the kidney, and this picture depicts anatomical landmarks of right kidney. So how you categorize renal trauma? So most importantly, renal trauma, any injury, you categorize on the basis of AAST classification. AAST classification, that is American Association for the Surgery of Trauma. All injuries anywhere, be it a liver injury or splenic injury, renal injury, ureteric injury, any injury in the body, the category of injury or grade of injury will be graded on the basis of AAST. This is the most universal classification. So American Association for the Surgery of Trauma, American Association for the Surgery of Trauma. This you should remember very clearly. So as you can see, grade 1, it can be grade 1, grade 2, grade 3 and grade 4. So grade 1, as you can see, is subcapsular hematoma or contusion. Subcapsular hematoma or contusion. This is the collecting system. You can, this is the medulla, this is the papillary tip, and this is the calyces. This is the cup of the major calyx, then this is the calyx and infundibulum. This is the calyx and this is the cup, calyx, infundibulum, pelvis, ureter. Medulla, pyramid, cup, calyx, infundibulum, pelvis. So this is cortex. This part is cortex. So category 1 only involves renal cortex. Category 2 involves laceration more than 1 centimeter and involving collecting system. Category 3 and 4 involves hilar vascular injury, and category 4 involves avulsion of PUJ. This is the old categorization which is of now historical. This is not AIST, this is old categorization. So most important, now we have gone to AIST classification. So this you should know. Grade 1 is subcapsular hematoma or contusion. This is, you can see, this is a renal capsule which has been lifted up because of hematoma. So this you should remember. Grade 1 is subcapsular hematoma or contusion. Grade 2 is renal parenchymal laceration less than 1 centimeter. Renal parenchymal laceration less than 1 centimeter or perirenal hematoma. This you can see, this is subcapsular. Now this is in perirenal space. Perirenal hematoma, as you learn in anatomy, perirenal fascia will be there surrounding the renal capsule. So perirenal fascia involvement or laceration of the parenchyma less than 1 centimeter consists of grade 2 injury. Grade 3 injury is laceration more than 1 centimeter into renal parenchyma but not involving the collecting system. This is the collecting system, right? This is the collecting system. So grade 3 is more than 1 centimeter laceration not involving the collecting system, and no urine extravasation. No urine extravasation, or mild vascular injury but confined within perirenal fascia. Mild vascular injury, subsegmental vessels have been damaged but bleeding is not expanding, hematoma is non-expanding, and it is confined within the perirenal fascia. This is grade 3. Now grade 4 is involvement of collecting system with urinary extravasation. As you can see, this injury has involved the collecting system and there is extravasation of urine. So this is grade 4 injury. Or as you can see, renal pelvic injury. Pelvic injury also will consist in grade 4. Grade 5 injuries consist of completely shattered kidney, all around every part is shattered, completely damaged, or major vascular injury. As you can see, renal artery has been abrupted and avulsed. So major renal vasculature hilar injury. This is the renal hilum. So hilar injuries are grade 5, and shattered kidney or completely devascularized kidney. These are the grade 5. So basically you should remember, grade 1 is subcapsular hematoma or contusion. Grade 2 laceration less than 1 centimeter. Grade 3 laceration more than 1 centimeter. In 1, 2, 3 grade, the collecting system will be intact. So mostly the management will be conservative. Most commonly you will not require any active intervention in first 3 grades of trauma. Grade 4 involvements of collecting system, and grade 5 is major renal hilar vessel injury and shattered kidney. This is the mota you should remember these things. So how you approach a patient of trauma, renal trauma. So whenever you approach a patient of trauma, you should see as a whole, because it will be mostly a polytrauma unless it is a gunshot specific or penetrating or stab wound to the flank. Generally it is a polytrauma, multi system will be involved, like there will be multiple bone fractures, rib fractures, liver injury, splenic injury, bowel injury associated with the renal injury. So you have to always evaluate patient as a whole. So approach should be, you should completely see how are the sequence of events, what is the mode of injury, first, number 1, and how patient presented to you. Then second, does patient has any pre-existing renal disease, like if patient is having a solitary kidney and that kidney has been damaged, then your approach will be modified. Because if patient both kidneys are normal, then one kidney is partially damaged, that can be managed conservatively and for time being. the other kidney will take care of the system. But if there is one kidney or other kidney has been jeopardized because of any pre-existing insults to the kidney because of disease or surgery, then you should be careful. So this history should be well evaluated. The third and most important is recognize and manage shock. So you should remember your ABC: airway, breathing and circulation. So first C is as in all trauma, airway, secure airway, breathing, and then third, circulation. If there is a patient is in shock, you should arrange adequate pack cells, and if there is an active bleeder outside from the wound, so that has to be managed and tackled accordingly. Then you have to assess the coexisting trauma. What are other injuries patient is having? So generally there are cases of polytrauma. So this is very important. So as we know, whenever patient is in shock because of trauma, the dictum is blood on the floor and 4 more. You should remember blood on the floor and blood on the floor and 4 more. So these things are the things you should, in your prima facie initial screening, these things should be sorted out. So blood on the floor means any active bleeder is there from femoral artery, radial artery, or that you can see. So blood on the floor, you will see active bleeding, patient is bleeding actively. And 4 more means 4 important compartments of the body should be screened. There is peritoneal, pelvis, peritoneal cavity, pleural cavity and pericardial cavity. Pelvis, peritoneum, pleural cavity and pericardial cavity. These are the major spaces where patient can bleed. So in lot of cases, initial, as you know, when there is a blood loss, the initial patient may not show any physical findings until unless the blood loss exceeds to the total volume, more than 50% total volume. Patient may not show any very obvious signs of tachycardia, hypotension. So these things should be seen properly. And other important feature is hematuria may or may not be present in renal injury, because hematuria will be, you will see hematuria when there is injury or any extravasation in the collecting system, because urine, whichever urine forms comes to collecting system and then it comes to pelvis, ureter, bladder and out. So until unless there is a breach here, you may not see any visible or gross hematuria. So hematuria may or may not be present. Always remember, any imaging should be done only once patient is hemodynamically stable. Imaging, here we are talking about any imaging where the patient has to be shifted to the console, like you are doing X-ray or you are doing a CT scan or MRI, should be considered when patient is hemodynamically stable. Otherwise you shift a patient for CT, patient may collapse in the console itself. What imaging on site, bedside can be done, should be done, like ultrasound and if you have portable X-ray. So these things are basic for any trauma. So you can see lot of, like, so many patients will have lot of cyst, simple cyst as we discussed before, like they may have Bosniak 1 or 2 cyst, which may be large cyst, and patient might be asymptomatic. But sometimes what happens, the cysts are large, any trivial trauma can lead to bleeding or hemorrhage within the cyst, and patient may lose lot of blood. So these things, so similar, so patient with large cyst should be cautioned that you should avoid and prevent any trivial trauma. Any trivial trauma also can trigger massive bleeding in the cyst. So as I told you, see the patient as a whole, not only renal side. So you will be called to see a traumatized patient, not a kidney injury. Okay, so you have to triage the patient systematically and promptly and swiftly. So triaging, as you all have read, you have to triage patient systematically. Which patient requires immediate attention, which patient can manage with conservative management bedside, which patient can be dealt later, and which patient is dead. So you have to triage accordingly. So always remember, renal or upper tract or ureteric injury may have coexisting bladder and urethral injury also. Now about physical findings. Record BP yourself always. Never trust any other fellow on the blood pressure, because most of the sisters are tuned to record BP of 120/80 irrespective of BP. So record BP yourself, then see the physical findings. If there is a liver injury, if there is a splenic injury, if there are rib fracture or rib injury, they are likely that patient might have renal injury. If there are bruises on the flank, as you can see bruises on the flank, then you should search for a renal injury. And if there is a mass, as you can see here, flank, there is a big mass bulge you can see on the flank on the right side, so that suggests there is a expanding and pulsatile hematoma, which is expanding, means which is increasing in size, means there is an active vascular injury, and that should be dealt promptly and adequately. So physical findings should always be searched for. The most important findings are bruises, expanding of pulsatile flank mass, rib fracture, liver, splenic injury associated should always be suspected of having associated renal injury. So hematuria, as you know, hematuria can be microhematuria or macrohematuria. Microhematuria is also known as NVH, non-visible hematuria, non-visible hematuria. And macrohematuria is visible hematuria or gross hematuria, visible or gross hematuria. So you should be able to, you must differentiate between microhematuria, which is non-visible, which will not, you can't see with your naked eyes, that will be seen in urine microscopy examination, and gross, as you can see, urine is very clear in microscopic hematuria, but in microscope you can see multiple RBCs. In gross hematuria, obviously you will be able to see the hematuria. So in microhematuria, most oftenly systolic blood pressure of the patient will be above 90. In macrohematuria, systolic blood pressure in 10% will be above 90, and less 10% cases will be below 90. So even with macrohematuria, patient might have stable blood pressure. So what are the imaging should be done? So first imaging is, in any trauma irrespective of the organ, is focused ultrasound. Focused ultrasound, also known as FAST. So that is the most important. Imaging should be done as soon as possible to locate and delineate the site of trauma. To locate and delineate the site of trauma. So you should know what is focused ultrasound. As I already told you, focused ultrasound focuses on these four compartments: pelvis, peritoneum, pericardium, and pleural spaces. There will be fast scanning. Where is blood? So if blood is in pericardium or pleural cavity or peritoneal cavity or pelvis, accordingly those organs will be stringently searched. So FAST or focused assessment of sonography for trauma. FAST, these full forms you should remember, like AAST and FAST. FAST is focused assessment with sonography for trauma. Focused assessment with sonography for trauma. So this is a quick and informative way of triaging the organ damage. And then CT grading is preferred today. If once patient is stable, you can grade the injury with CT. CT sensitivity is very high. The traditionally done intravenous urogram or intravenous pyelogram indications has reduced in the current CT era, but previously we used to do for all penetrating trauma, all pediatric trauma, gross hematuria, non-visible microhematuria with shock. These patients must undergo CT scan, or previously IVU. Now these patients must undergo CT scan, but currently all trauma patients should undergo CT scan irrespective of the grade of injury, vital status, whether patient is stable or not. Medico-legal, for medico-legal purpose, any trauma should be scanned with a CT scan. But if you ask which are the absolute indication for CT scan, is gross hematuria, microhematuria with shock, all penetrating injuries, all pediatric injuries are absolute indication for CT scan. IVU only now today intravenous pyelogram has left with a patient who is in shock, unstable, and you are taking him directly to operation theatre, and before operating the damaged kidney site, see the injuries on right side, you are exploring on the right side, and most often you may end up removing that kidney, but by that time you may not know, you will not know the status of the opposite kidney. So you have to tell the patient relative that if patient is not having the other kidney because of previous surgery or congenitally one side kidney is absent, solitary kidney is there, or other kidney is jeopardized because of any other condition, then you will not be knowing in an emergency condition. So in the OT you can do single shot intravenous pyelogram. You give 75 to 100 mg of contrast, take one shot. If the opposite kidney has taken contrast, then you will know the opposite kidney is probably it is functioning. But if opposite renal unit, non-traumatized renal unit is not taking contrast, that means that kidney is not working, and the kidney which has been traumatized you are going to explore, you may end up doing nephrectomy, so patient may become anephric, so both kidneys will be gone. So in that case patient will be dialysis dependent, he may need transplant later. So these things will be well explained to the patient before going in for procedure and for your medico legal purposes. So this picture depicts very well, as you can see, all four grades of injury. This is grade 1 is contusion, small contusion. Grade 2 you can see big perinephric hematoma. Grade 3 you can see, this is grade 4, you can see the collecting system is injured, and grade 5 you can see completely devascularized kidney. Here you can see vascularized, very well vascularized kidney has taken up contrast well. Here you can see completely black shadow, no contrast uptake, so devascularized kidney. This is also an image of lower polar injury. The lower pole of kidney has been injured and devascularized. You can see the upper pole and mid pole is taken contrast, but lower pole has not taken contrast. This kidney is normal and there is no urinary extravasation. As you can see, the collecting system is intact. These are the angio images of injured renal pedicle. You can see renal pedicle has been injured. So now about management. Most often renal injuries, 95% are managed conservatively with vitals monitoring, urine output monitoring, monitoring of hemogram at regular interval, like you have to monitor hemoglobin at regular interval, pulse, blood pressure at regular interval, watch for urine at regular intervals. You may need aggressive fluid and blood resuscitation of the patient. Then always check for microhematuria by sending urine for routine microscopy. Whenever you are managing conservatively, you should be more cautious because you are not doing anything actively, so you have to be more cautious to manage the patient. So regular vitals monitoring, hemoglobin monitoring, monitoring of output and color of urine, then regular interval imaging, whether your hematoma is expanding, whether the injury is expanding. So these things has to be monitored at frequent interval. And then you have to counsel patient when you are doing conservative management that if there is a perirenal hematoma, there are chances that patient may develop hypertension later or renal failure later. So these things should be counseled, patient should be counseled for that. Then 95% you can manage conservatively. All grade 1, 2, 3 can be managed conservatively. Grade 4, 5 requires intervention. So in surgical repair, if there is a collecting system injury, you can do a DJ stenting. If there is a minor injury to the collecting system, with DJ stent 6 to 8 weeks, the collecting system might heal and the extravasation of urine will stop. The other options of repair is you can do rhinorrhaphy. If there is an injury to the parenchyma, you can do rhinorrhaphy, like lacerated part you can resuture rhinorrhaphy over a bolster, or like lower polar, as I told you, when you have seen this lower polar injury, you can do partial nephrectomy because this is devascularized part. it is a source of infection and hypertension later. So you can do this part, you can divide, cut. This is called as partial nephrectomy, and most often you will end up doing a total nephrectomy. Most often you will end up doing a total nephrectomy because there will be a lot of active bleeding, there will be huge hematoma. It will be very difficult for you to appreciate the anatomical landmarks when you are going in a trauma case. So most often in trauma, organ sparing is very difficult. Most often you will come out with the kidney. So these are the surgical way of management, and most commonly we manage conservatively if patient is hemodynamically stable. So what are the complications when you do conservative management? So initially patient hematoma is contained, it is not expanding, it is non-expanding, but it may have, what happens when the vessel is injured, hematoma forms, it forms a tamponade over that, or hematoma, it forms a tamponade, and then wall of the vessel becomes necrosed. So initially 7-10 days there will be stoppage of bleeding. As the vessel wall gets sloughed off, there will be again bleeding, heavy bleeding. So delayed bleeding should be explained to the patient that in event of delayed bleeding, patient may need immediate emergency intervention, which may require nephrectomy also. Then minor urine leak which got unidentified in initial imaging, later slowly urine may trickle from the injured side and form a huge urinoma surrounding the kidney, and that can get infected, form an abscess. As you know, I have written abscess third. Then fourth is AV fistula, so renal artery vein injury or segmental vessel injury. They are nearby. There can be anomalous communication, fistulous communication between artery and vein. So patient may form AV fistula, which may lead to recurrent hematuria, hypertension, renal failure. Then obviously loss of renal function slowly. Then hypertension, as I told you. And last is Page kidney. Page kidney, what happens? There is a Page kidney is perirenal hematoma, which gets fibrosed over time, and the kidney will get entrapped in the fibrosis. So which will lead to hypertension and renal failure, or loss of the functioning of or decreased functioning of that renal. It is called Page kidney. So these are the usual complications of conservative management. Now about ureteric injuries. As I told you, ureteric injuries are more commonly iatrogenic, like in ureterorhinoscopy or iatrogenic pelvic surgeries, most commonly hysterectomy, surgery for any malignancy, Werdheim's hysterectomy, pelvic accentration surgeries, caesarean sections, and then penetrating injuries to ureter. So what are the options? Ureteric injury we will be dealing 50-50 here, 50 in the lower tract trauma also. So what are the options? If there is a partial loss of ureter or partial injury to ureter, you can put a DJ stent into the ureteric lumen. As you can see, DJ stent has been coiled in kidney, and you can leave it for 6 weeks for injury to heal, and after 6 weeks you can remove and reassess whether the injury has been healed or not. If it has not healed, then you need further intervention or treatment accordingly. The other, as I told you, in most commonly hysterectomy will be iatrogenic ureterovaginal fistula. As you can see, ureterovaginal fistula. See, this is the ureter and this is vagina, scope is in vagina, and you can see there is an abnormal communication between ureter and the vagina. Ureterovaginal fistula. So there will be fistula between ureter and vagina, ureterovaginal fistula. So in that case, patient will have continuous leakage of urine because there is a fistula between ureter and vagina. So patient will be incontinent. So that has to be dealt. Either if it is a partial injury, you can put a DJ stent, or if it is a major injury, or if it is not healing after DJ stenting, then you have to divide that fistula and reimplant the ureter into bladder again, in the new position, so that the fistula tract gets closes. So this is the management of ureterovaginal fistula. In ureteric injury, if there is a short segment injury to ureter, like less than 2 centimeter, you can divide that part, injured part or fibrous part, and you can do end-to-end anastomosis of the ureter. So you can see the fibrous part has being divided. Ureters are spatulated to keep the lumen of adequate diameter, and then there will be ureteric anastomosis, ureteric anastomosis, end-to-end anastomosis of the ureters. But when there is a more than 2 centimeter loss of ureter, see, you can't do ureteric anastomosis. Then the options are, from the opposite kidney you can do transuretroureterostomy. So this segment of the right ureter has been lost, so you can either do transuretroureterostomy, means one ureter will be anastomosed to the opposite ureter, so that the both will drain through this common channel. So transuretroureterostomy. And the other option is, this is not a very good option, because most of the times, because the ureteric lumen is small, both ureteric lumens are small, when you anastomose them, there are chances of forming a stenosis there. The opening might become narrow. So the other option is a Bovary flap with a Swass hitch. A Bovary flap is a vascularized bladder flap. You can see from bladder, one vascularized flap has been cut in a rectangular shape, and it has been elevated and will be joined to the ureter. So this is called as Bovary flap. So this is a very good option. Bovary flap can reach even in good capacity bladder up to the pelvis also. So Bovary flap is a very good option for reconstruction of the ureteric loss. The third, if both fails, then the last option will be ileal replacement. So the lost segment of ureter is replaced by a vascularized pedicle of the ileum is divided and tubularized and anastomosed one end to bladder, other end to ureter. This is called as ileal replacement. So these are the various methods of management of ureteric injury. DJ stenting number 1, second is ureteric reimplantation in cases of UVF, transuretroureterostomy, Bovary flap, and lastly ileal replacement. So this is all about upper tract injuries. So in next class we will discuss about lower tract injuries. Lower tract injuries will consist mainly of injury to the bladder, which we classified as extraperitoneal and intraperitoneal bladder injury. Management differs a lot in extra intraperitoneal bladder injury and urethral injury. Mostly posterior urethra is damaged in trauma. So urethral injuries we will be discussing, and along with that something about pelvic fractures also we will discuss. So please read about pelvic fracture, Tiles classification, so that when we discuss it will be easy for you to comprehend it. Okay, thank you.